Thanks everyone for joining. My name is Peace, and we're going to start the webinar now. I will start by introducing myself. My name is Peace, and I'm a product marketing manager. On this call, we've got a bunch of interesting people on the panel to speak to us today. And I want to welcome everyone. We're going to discuss, of course, building customer relationships through personalization. Some of us have some kind of understanding into what personalization is and why it's important. Some of us may be building personalization today in our day-to-day, but I'm hoping that from this webinar, when you leave it, you have like a more solid understanding of how exactly you can actually utilize personalization to differentiate one product from another product, to make your own relationships with your customers a different experience, right? Especially because even in scenarios where features are the same or similar, the approach to customer experience is a great way to differentiate your product and stand out. So my panelists here on the call with me are Eddie Young. He's a head of growth and marketing specialist, a really big guy in the industry. And I also have Paul, who is CEO of Bonds. And then there is Nena, who is a product specialist at Quora. I'm so excited to have all of you on the call with me. And yeah, I hope we have a great conversation. I hope that we give our listeners something great to take home with after this call. Also, I'd like to add that if you have questions, you can just leave them in the comments, and then I'll attend to these questions when we reach the Q&A section. All right. So my very first question, or as an intro, I'm going to start with asking Paul, can you give us some context into this topic, and can you share some thoughts? Because in the startup ecosystem, in the startup industry, something has to have happened for us to get here, for us to get to this place where we're now talking about personalization. When did it become a thing, and why is it more critical today, especially with building customer relationships?
Thank you, Peace, for that question. Can you hear me? Just to confirm.
Yes, I can.
Awesome. Thank you for the session. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I think I'll just go straight into it. So really, we're here today to talk about customer personalization, right? And when you think about it, personalization really is the process of tailoring products or services and experiences to meet the needs of your users, right? When you think about any product or any service you offer as a business, you most likely you're not offering that product or service to one user, right? You probably have a couple of users or hundreds of users or thousands of users or even millions, right? And the more users you have on the platform, the more the need for personalization comes in, right? So really, when we say personalization, what we're actually referring to is how can we personalize the experience that each of these individual customers that we have, how can we personalize their experience when they use our product or when they use our platform, right? We all know that users have different preferences, have different needs, and have different problems they're trying to solve by patronizing our product or our service. And personalization is this process where we're able to understand our users and then craft our strategy to really be personal to them, to sort of get their experience better. So personalization has always been a thing, right? People have always craved to feel like this brand knows me or this company actually knows me, right? Think about the different emails you receive. One says hello and just goes into the message itself, and then one says hello, Paul, and then it was nice for you to download our app yesterday. And it just gives me a little bit of context that, hey, these people know what I've been up to in terms of how I've been interacting with their platform. And, they're sort of are getting to understand me, or they already understand me, and they're making my experience personal. And so because of that, I'm more poised to interact with the platform, or they want to go ahead with what I'm doing. So that's what personalization is about. It's about understanding your customers and crafting your strategies on how you could serve them better. So it's always been a thing, but more recently, the need for these experiences has actually come up. And the reason for that is when you look at the competitive landscape today of several companies, like there's so many fintech apps these days, there's so many e-commerce apps, there's like apps for every category, like 1,000. So the question is, why would a customer choose one over the other? And from research, the answer to that is the companies that people choose over the others are companies that are able to craft a great personalization strategy for their users, right? And so that's sort of why things have become important, because more users these days crave a personalized experience in everything they do, right? Imagine logging into Netflix and maybe you like to watch Hollywood movies and then you don't see any of that. You're rather seeing movies from other ecosystems, right? That wouldn't be a cool experience. Some people would not even bother to check. They're just like, go away, right? And so that's why personalization has become like increasingly important, is because as users, we're bombarded with all of these services, and making the right choice is, is something that we need to think about. So when companies take the charge and personalize your experience, it goes a longer way to, making that happen. So yes, that's all I'll say about that.
All right. And do you think that personalization is, or does it need to be a part of like overall business strategy, or does it take position in like, customer success strategy, or is it a growth marketing strategy, or is it like more of a business strategy, or that a business needs to be thinking of, like this is a critical part for us to think of?
Yes, it's actually a critical part of the business. As a business, there's two things basically. You're acquiring customers, and you're also, on one hand, you're acquiring customers, and on the other hand, you're trying to retain them, right? And so that's where personalization comes in. Personalization comes in when you're trying to retain users, right? 100,000 people just downloaded your app. So how are you going to get the 100,000 people who actually fill out their KYC to actually start using your app and getting the value they're supposed to get out of it, right? So it's not something that you defer and be like, do it. You should start from the onset.
Yeah.
I'm
sorry. Can we all hear Paul? All right. All right, Paul. So I think that I'm going to ask the question, like I'm going to talk to Eddie now. Hi, Eddie Young. So Paul already mentioned that personalization typically comes in when we're trying to, or a business is trying to retain customers. And I know that you have a lot of experience in, driving business growth B2C. I want to understand, can you share like in your experience, how personalization, or in what stages, at what points does it start, at what points does it end? Can you share with us? Eddie John, can you hear me?
Yeah, I could hear you. I think the network glitch made me drop off. Yeah, I heard your question. I'd say one thing, irrespective of the company's size or stage of growth, personalization is very, very important. I would actually assume that for every company who's trying to build a great product, from day one, they should incorporate personalization into their strategy. There's a lot of reasons why that is so. Think about it. As an early stage company or just a new business, it's easier for you to build up the framework really well versus when you're already grown, you have 1 million users, and then you're now trying to figure out how do we then personalize. The time and the effort required to rejig can then be very stressful. Then even more, if you think about what customers really expect, they expect a lot more special feeling, right? When they want to do business with you or when they want to buy from you. There is a report by McKinsey Group that shows that about 78% of customers are most likely to recommend a particular product to their friends and family if it was being personalized. About 76% of them would most likely consider to buy from a brand that knows them and personalize the experience. And again, another 78% says, hey, we would come back again to buy from you. So that shows that consumers now demand more. They want to feel special. They want to feel known. And they now repay brands who, to an extent, personalize the experience for them. But even more, it is good to think about how well that should be done, right? We see customers wanting to get relevant recommendations about products that they never thought of buying. For example, when they're shopping, whether it's online or offline, they want to be caught at those micro moments, right? So you just imagine you're walking into a store, you're trying to buy maybe a shoe, maybe a Nike shoe, and then you're getting an email about almost the same time recommending based on past shopping experiences. I mean, that feels really exciting. For example, maybe then I wanted to buy something online and then for some reason I got distracted. I want to be able to get popped up saying, hey, you forgot your cart, would you continue buying? And as well, just that feeling of, yes, you really know me. There is an example of a brand. Actually, it's called Zepto. Last week, I think this week, not last week, this week, a woman came on LinkedIn and then she said, Zepto, you guys need to fix your personalization. And it was very funny because Zepto had sent her a notification. Zepto is a grocery shopping brand. I think they're big in India. They've raised millions of dollars in funding. But they sent her a notification saying, your pills are missing you. So sad. And then she's like, I've never bought pills before, right? Why are you sending this to me? You could have done well by personalizing me. And she's like, I'm deleting your app because you guys don't know what you're doing. So you can see great value for organizations or businesses by trying to really know who their customers are as an individual, understanding their preferences, their their usage pattern on their product, and being able to tailor that experience. So that's very exceptional. So it's very important for companies of all sizes. There is no late time to start, but then it should be something you incorporate as you're trying to think about building your product.
Yeah, Eddie, that relates to that story that you just told, because I once downloaded an app and then I started getting messages, but instead of calling my name, they were calling me another name, and it was even a male name. So I was really, really confused. And I remember that it always put me off so much that I even stopped. I blocked them from my email. So yeah, that's a very good instance of bad personalization. But obviously, if done right, it's a smart way, like you've already said, of meeting me at the point where maybe I forgot to do something, and then it's like a nice nudge for me. But you've already said that there's no late time. It's even better to start early with personalization, and I agree. But what are the key steps? Like if I want to create personalization in my business, and what are the key steps that you would recommend that need to be taken? Yes, it is.
Okay. I mean, it's not an easy process personalizing as it might sound, right? Everyone says, hey, you can always add first name, to every email or every conversation you're having. It sounds very, very easy, but it can be a lot more technical. I think the first thing is to have an end goal, right? Why do I want to personalize? I mean, we can all say, hey, I want to be able to retain customers. I want to increase my revenue, or if this customer's already purchasing from me, I want to expand the revenue. I mean, it's easy to say, but I think you need to look at it from a long-term goal. Do I want my customers to feel very special? Do I want my customers to say positive things about me? Do I want them to recommend me to other people because of how amazing I am? I mean, depending on your goal, it's good to just have like key goals. But out of that, you need to start thinking about the functional team, because it's not just a one person initiative. If you imagine, advanced, machine learning, which comes into play around personalization, then you realize that it's not just a marketing person's thing. You can create a strategy, but then you need to execute it, right? So you need a team that is focused on strategy, implementation, and as well being able to keep that personalization program going. You also need to choose where you want to personalize, because depending on the kind of product you have and the scale in which you have, if it's your core, it might be all of the channels, right? It might just be one channel, right? And as well, it can be omni-channel, right? Whether it's online or offline, depending on your product type. So you need to decide, where do you want to personalize? Where is the most effective for you? And then focus in on that. And then you want to be able to think about what technology do you want to use to personalize, right? I think that's very, very important. And I guess as well, there are a lot of technologies out there that one can think about. Bonds is one of them, I would say, around being able to personalize across different channels. You also want to be able to look at how do you then, once you've agreed on the technology you want to use, how do you then activate it based off of your segmentation of your customers, right? Because your customers definitely have given you data points, right, that you can use, right? It could be based on, for example, name, their age, their location, how frequently they've used your products, what products they've bought. All of those gives you data to be able to segment really well. You want to think about, based on this data that you have, what do you then push to your customers? What kind of content, what kind of experiences, what kind of messaging fits their basic needs? And then you then work towards refining your strategy over time. You can do a lot of A and B testing with your conversion rate. So if you send out a push notification to a customer, for example, or send out a message to them on WhatsApp, and you had focused on this messaging around personalization or this experience, how many of them had responded? How did that, affect the bottom line of your business? Those are things you need to put into place while you test and refine, and then as well you can go at it at scale once you know that you found your hook and you're successful. I think that's what I would say. But most importantly, it's because technology is growing really rapidly, that you need to be able to ensure that you have the right people who are able to keep your personalization strategy going over the years, right? Because then now you have AI, things are changing, so you need to have the right people. If you're armed with all of that, I'm sure that you can be very successful.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Eddie Young. That's very insightful. Nena, I know you've got a lot of experience in product. Can you share some ways that you have implemented personalization, or you've seen it implemented very well? I'd like us to understand your perspective.
All right. Thank you, Pierce. So when it comes to personalization, right? From the product point of view, right? We just like Edidion has mentioned, right? We get data, right, from the customer service, or from research, right, or from having conversations with our clients, right. That now helps us to understand. Right, before then, I'd like to add that personalization has become very crucial for businesses right now, as businesses seek to cater for different to their diverse customers' unique requests, right? So I think everybody in a company understands the importance of personalization. Now, understanding how crucial it is now affects the product that we now produce or build, right? To to meet the needs of this to meet the needs of our clients. So just like Eddie Jong has said, and Paul, we work with data, right? Take for example a financial company, right? You notice a merchant does or a client does, or a certain spectrum of clients, right? Because now, to build products, you have to segment your clients, and to build product and personalize them, you have to bring in segmentation. There are some category of people that this will work for, and there are some other categories that it will not work for, right? So the data that is being gathered from first of all, from the onboarding process, there are times when we have to sit and meet with merchants to know what it is exactly that their business is about, right? That helps gives an insight to the product manager, aside every other person, maybe the sales, etc., as to what it is that this client needs are, right? So when we have insights to what it is that they need, if we have the product, we sell it to them. But if not, we can look into, building them. That's the first step of personalization, right? And I feel like everyone should get it right at the customer onboarding point, right? So at that point, if we don't get to meet with them during the onboarding time, if it is a financial company, a company that deals with maybe finance, money, etc., the next suggestion is to take note of the transaction pattern, right? When you take note of what it is they do on your platform, it helps you to streamline their activities and, build products in line with what they do, right? Say, for example, a client is big on making transactions or making transfers in bits. You notice that this particular client is making transfers in bits, say 1,000 payouts every single time. It helps the product manager to know what to build, right? So in that situation, you know that what you should build to personalize this person experience, to personalize this client's experience and make it better for them, is to build maybe a solution that could help them make this payment in bulk and make it easier for them. So I think everything that concerns personalization still boils down to ease, right? Because I have the mindset that people can do just anything that they want to do. But if they come to you to do it for them, it means that they want it as easy as possible. So when we get the data that we want from them, either by their transaction behaviors, from surveys that have been pushed out, or from having conversations with them, we then go to build products that are in line with their needs, right? What does this do? It makes the customer feel understood, appreciated, right? And then it fosters loyalty, and thereby leading to long-lasting relationship, right? So from the product view, what we basically do is, get this data, either by meeting with them, right, to understand. And the most important part of this whole thing is to have the mindset that a successful client business is also translates to your own success, right? So if what you are building is making their business successful, it in turn means that you too are successful in what you're doing. So the process would be either having a sync with them, meeting with them, trying to understand what it is they want. If you are unable to, this is from the product POV. Now, then we go into data, right? Look through what it is they do, the features that they use most, and then we can work in line to to improve it, right? Then if that doesn't give us enough insight as to what it is that we are looking to achieve to improve their experience, we then go for surveys, right? Those are like the three key things to personalize, to improving or making personalization, making use of personalization in the product end, right? So with knowing, sitting with them. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, I can.
Oh, all right. So with these three very important things, having a sync with them to understand what it is that they need to build in line with their needs, and you also need to understand what success is, right, for your client, right? So understanding what success is for your client also helps you to personalize that client, right? They might have an idea of what success means to them, but do not know the product that they need to, to get to have this success that they are looking forward to. That's where we come in. When we sync with them, we know what they need, and then suggest it to them, and then give it to them, right? Make sure that it satisfies what they want, and as much as possible, it is easy for them to use. And then if you can have a sync with them to then you can reach out for surveys. Just make them know that the reason we are here is because of you, right? And the market is no longer a one size fits all where you give them the products you have and then they don't have a choice. Right now, customers want products and services that are tailored to their needs. So the ways we have adopted and implemented over the years that has worked is having a sync with these clients to understand what success looks like to them, reaching out to them via surveys, and also, getting data from what their transactions are like. So I think that's it for me. Thank you, Chris.
All right, thank you. So that's interesting because basically there are two ways to go about it. Yeah. So like on one hand, we can try to get the data by ourselves and try to understand like how are their behaviors and in what place, in what areas or in what steps, in what areas of their journey can we personalize? Or we can directly go and ask them, right? Like, what are they looking to see at each step of their journey, which is an interesting perspective. And then I want to also ask you, Nena, right? Like, how do you collect this customer feedback? Like, I don't imagine that for every single business, it is super easy. You mentioned surveys, but how do you bake this in so that it feels like, because I also assume that, or I know that personalization is like, it has to become an experience. Like customers have to not feel like they're jumping through hoops to enjoy personalization. So how do you get people to take surveys or give you feedback and do all of these things so that you're collecting data from the customer directly? How do you incorporate this as a part of the product experience?
All right, thank you, Piss. Right. Okay. So thank you for your question. I know I had mentioned, surveys, right? But in the order at which I arranged it, survey was like the last part because people do not really take surveys as you have confirmed, right? So the main channel that we get concrete feedback from is you can get concrete feedback from is the customer service channel, right? Why do I say this? They have direct interactions with the client, right? And I feel like customer support data is so rich in insights, right? It carries the pain point, it carries the client's preferences, it carries the new features that they would like to build, and sometimes it carries insights as to of what is happening in the market, right? Some things you might not know because you're focusing on your vision, right? Which is not bad. But you see a customer comes in and says, oh, I want this product because maybe a competitor has the same thing, right? So they don't come to the product managers directly. So when it comes to data, I don't think any business should joke with the customer support data. They are so rich. They have a lot of insights, right? So with that insight, those feedback we get from the customer support data now helps us to build a roadmap. Let's say customer feedback, as customer feedback is like a roadmap for personalization. Yeah. So largely, we depend on the voice of the customer, and the voice of the customer comes from customer support data. And a customer would not ordinarily place a call to a product manager when they have issues, or place a call to the CEO, or place a call to, it's only in very few cases do they place a call to their sales manager. Most customers, from my analysis, they like to self-serve. When they try to self-serve and it doesn't work, the next thing that comes to their mind is customer support. So customer support data is so rich in insights. Every business should not overlook that, right? So when we get this feedback, it now serves as a roadmap for personalization, right? With the feedback gotten from customers, imagine your customers are asking for a particular product repeatedly. It's already a pointer as to what to build next, right? And if you're building it, it means you're listening. It means you're not just in the market to do your mind. It means you're listening to them and you're there to to improve and make them improve their experience and make them feel feel like we hear them, we see you, and we want your business to grow, or whatever it is you're using our platform for, right? Surveys are very important. Very few people might click on survey links due to maybe phishing. People are scared of being phished, right? But where you can get quality data from is the customer success data insights, right? They have everything.
Nana. All right. Thank you so much. Now.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is very interesting. Also, I want to understand something, and this question is for you, Paul. When Eddie John was speaking last time, he mentioned bonds and how you help customers, you help businesses that come to bonds to manage this personalization and make it better, seamless, etc. I want to understand, is there like an interesting use case or an interesting story that you've seen with brands that they've used in doing personalization very well? Like, is there a story you can share with us just so that it gives more context and serves as like an example that others can learn from?
Yeah, sure. In terms of how a brand has leveraged personalization to drive customer loyalty and satisfaction, I mean, there's local examples I could give, but a very good example, I'd like to use something general that maybe we can all relate to, is Netflix, for instance. So I'll give my own story of how I became like a default user of some sort, right? So I typically see most movies are like I typically see like action movies or maybe Nollywood stuff, and every time I see a new movie, right, Netflix tracks the movie I just saw, like, what kind of movie is it? What's the length, like the time? What genre? Just everything about what I did. And then what typically happens is that every time there's a similar movie, I get a push notification and an email, right? I typically do not check push notifications so much. What I've seen is that every time I get that push notification and I never read it, after like a day or something, and I haven't taken any action on that, I get a follow-up email and like, oh, we added this movie that you might like to watch, right? And I personally like to review every movie before I see them. So there in that email, I have the context of everything I need. I see the title, I see a brief about it, I see some of the actors, I see how long it is, and then I decide. And so I typically decide what to watch from my email. I never log, because I have a choice paralysis, right? So I can never log in to go figure out what to see. But every time they send me stuff, it's always stuff I'm most likely interested in. And the reason they can do that is because they track my data, they know my preferences, and they're able to recommend relevant stuff. And so 9 out of 10 times when I get those emails, it's always a hit. It's always something I would like to see and actually always end up seeing because they understand me, right? But if you compare that to some other platforms, which I've also used, where they're like, oh, we just added this new Korean movie. I've never seen a Korean movie on their website. I've never, seen anything of that sort. And I'm just being given this bulk message that I'm sure every other person on the platform receives. When you think about stuff like that, you see that then it's not going to be a surprise as to which brand did better with personalization and which brand would find most success with that. So Netflix is an example of like a company that really uses personalization to get people to see more movies, get people to keep subscribing, get people to discover new movies. And all of that is through the power of personalization. So they're able to understand their users and they're able to use the understanding of those users to craft the strategy that will get them to, see movies they'll likely watch. So that's a very good example of personalization that I feel everyone can relate to. Yeah, because we all see movies, right? So yeah, peace. That's it for me.
Yeah, thank you.
Quickly, please, can I jump in as well? Because
absolutely.
there's a classic example. So if we think about personalization, we might want to date ourselves back to 20 years ago, and that was the year for Amazon. They are like the pioneers of personalization and the recommendation system. I think they invest a lot of money kind of really building out predictive models, which also kind of based into an aspect of marketing called predictive marketing. And one thing for Amazon is that has really, really been impactful on the overall success and sales. At some point, they had mentioned that 35% of their sales come from the recommendations that they have from their predictive engines. So they've used lots of machine learning and they've been able to like really understand who the customers are and send them the right messages. So think about like the emails you get from them, it's always very personalized. They're trying to nudge you to reorder products. It's always very personalized. And even on the web pages, so you visit your Amazon store web page, and I also visit mine, the experience is going to be very, very different. It's personalized. And they've done this really, really well over the years. If you also, so what they do is they have different entry points. So for example, imagine I'm a very fresh user. I've never used Amazon before. Then I get some level of recommendation. I think that's called cold start. A cold start recommendation. Basically, they're showing you things like trending, things that people have bought a lot, and they're asking you to take that first click. Once you take that first click, then they can recommend products that are similar, right, to the ones you had clicked, and they're suggesting it. And if you bought from them, they then go in it further to now say, hey, we know you bought something the last time for this product. We think that you will need a complementary product or some other different product entirely, which kind of is kind of closed. So they use a lot of algorithms, including like collaborative filtering, just to ensure that they save you with the right product at the right time, right? Which is actually the basis of personalization. And so they do it really well. And I guess most of the companies today are building up from that framework of their personalization. So I think that's really a classic example of really great recommendation or personalization. Yeah.
And Eddie Young, you were just talking about like Netflix, about Amazon. And then Paul talked about Netflix with push notification. Amazon is sort of like an in-product personalization experience. So can you tell us, can you share some of the best channels that you've seen companies do personalization with?
Yeah, to be very sincere, there is no right channel. I would always argue out. It all depends on what product you have, right? For example, if I have a physical store, right, there's a level of personalization I might want to engineer, right? I'll give an example, Starbucks, right? Okay, I think Starbucks is not so popular yet in Nigeria, but I mean, in most places around the world, people who visit Starbucks for the first time have a really good experience. When you're buying the product, they ask you for your email address, and then you give them your email. And what happens is, by the time you're almost home, you'd have gotten an email saying, hey, thanks, you bought from us. We have a loyalty program, to download our app. And then you get to, win points as it would be, right? And then if you then download your app, then you now get a second level of personalization, which would be through like your notifications, as it would be. So it all depends on, what kind of product you have or what your business is like. It could be email, it could be WhatsApp. Now there is the growth of WhatsApp. Almost everyone has a WhatsApp account. So WhatsApp is also like a really great channel. I mean, you also see companies building on top of WhatsApp now, even payments as it would be. So I'm imagining that would also, grow exponentially in the coming years. Push notification was also a really great channel. I think at some point it got abused, but hopefully now there is a bit of sanity there. So if used well, can be really, really great. This company called Temu, is also one really great company that does personalization really well, and they use their emails and notifications super well. And as well, Shen. I mean, most of the e-commerce brands really do it well. So like basically, B2C brands do it really, really well. Trying to ensure that they personalize what you see, even recommending the right products to you. So it all depends on what your business is like. Whether it's an offline business, in an online business. The most important thing is being able to use data to make that insightful decision as to which channel to scale and which channel to kind of deprioritize, right? I think that's what I would advise. But happily, anyone can try out any of the channels and then use, do a bit of learn and test period, and then learn from there as to which one to really focus their energies on. The most important thing at the end of the day is what the conversion is and how that affects business numbers, right? And so that should be helpful.
Yeah, so I agree with you as well.
Just can I add something to that?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I mean, so why we like to talk about multi-channel engagement is that when you think about users are different, right? Some users are more active on email, some are more active when you send them a WhatsApp, or some are more active on SMS or push notification. So really, for a business, you have different types of users, and they're all interacting with you from different. Some are interacting with you from their mobile devices, some are from their TV, some from their laptop, right? So it's based off what channels are better for my users. What channels do I see most success with? And that's when you could figure out what channel to double down, right? We hear a lot of things in Africa. We hear that email is like WhatsApp. WhatsApp is email, right? Because if you're in the West, you could send a lot of emails and you're going to be sure that a large percentage of people wouldn't read that. Why? Because a whole lot of people there prefer to use emails for communicating with companies, right? But in Africa, for instance, a lot of people like to communicate with brands via WhatsApp. So really, it's really about understanding your customers, understanding what channels they prefer, understanding what channel they're more active on, and understanding the ROI of each channel, right? And also, it's great to monitor channels so you don't spend money on like irrelevant messaging, because there's two things that happen when you send messages that don't get read by users. One is that they're unhappy with those messages, and so there's a little bit of satisfaction drop there. And then you as a business also lose money, right? So imagine you're spending 10 naira to send one message, and then you send 10,000 messages and they don't get read, right? You've just lost a whole lot. You've just lost like 100K, right? Even though you may not feel it as a big business or something, but the point remains that that's a loss, right? So it's good to understand your customers, what channel they are most active on, and then optimize for that. Thank you.
Yes, and you mentioned something, Paul, that sometimes you send a message on one channel and customers are unhappy. So is there like, how do you strike a balance? Like, how can a business strike a balance between personalization using these channels versus respecting customer privacy?
Right. I think that a crucial point here is understanding data regulation, right? So when you think about different countries, there's a whole lot of regulation already happened. In Nigeria, we have our NDPA. In Europe, we have GDPR. And, it's different for many countries, right? So how you first strike a balance is also through communication, right? So think about when you're about to sign up for a service, and they have this checkbox at the end of the form, and they say, if you would like to be contacted via email or SMS, tick this box or something, and then you tick it. So first of all, what you've done there is that you've gotten consent that, hey, send me messages through this channel, right? And so as a user, I know that I've checked this, so I expect to receive messages, right? However, what actually makes users tired isn't the messages. It's that a lot of them, over 90%, are irrelevant, right? So as a business, you want to find a way to say, how do you send relevant messages to users, right? And so the way to do that is to move away from a one-size-fits-all marketing or messaging strategy to a personalized messaging strategy, so that you send the right users the right message at the right time through the right channel, right? And you do that through understanding their journey, understanding their data, understanding their preferences, understanding everything about them, and then tailoring your strategy to suit that. So when you do that, you see that you're going to send more relevant messages. You're going to actually also send less messages, and you're going to be more effective. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, I want to also add something, please. Yeah, and I think so there's always an analogy I would use to kind of show why and how to show the balance. So let's put a simple scenario. I go to a store to buy something, and then a salesperson walks up to me and possibly greets me. Hi, what are you looking for? How can I help you today? I mean, and chill, right? But imagine if that salesperson came to my house at 10 p.m. at night to also try to sell me that same dress. How would I feel? Possibly I'll be angry. Exactly. I'll be like, what's happening here? Like, why are you coming to my house at this time? So it's the same way we're trying to personalize, right? We need to understand that personalization at certain contexts can be creepy if it is changed or if it's done at the wrong time, right? Like Paul mentioned, it's very important to ensure that you send the right message, right? Or relevant messages. If you just send bulk messages to everyone, like the example I also gave previously of that woman who was complaining about Septo, then it becomes very invasive, right? There is a survey that was done in the US, and consumers said that they would not see messages as being invasive if those messages were from brands that they had previously looked up at. So let's say, for example, I had checked up a brand and then they sent me the message at the right time. I wouldn't think that that's very invasive. But also that calls on brands to rethink what kind of data they collect from customers and how they also use anonymous information. For example, in the B2B side, you have different tools that can tell you who visited your company's website, with a lot of data enrichment abilities to now tell the person's name, the person's phone number, the person's email, the person's company, right? If you then were to send a message to that customer, how would that customer feel? Would it be invasive or would it not be? I think that's, a great point. Businesses have to then make a decision as to what, when and how to send those messages. But most importantly, it is good to be transparent. Transparent in the sense that we try to give customers control over their data. I mean, like Paul mentioned, regulations have also changed. And so that means that more customers now even have control. So, for example, you should give customers the ability to be able to edit their data, to remove their data if they wanted to. And also explain to them why you're collecting certain information and how you're going to use this information, right? And as well, maybe then a feedback loop to be able to improve the process. That way, you're able to ensure that you can use that in your strategy, right? And to create that bit of balance between being very delightful and being creepy or invasive.
Yeah, and when you're thinking about effectiveness, when you're deciding, this personalization effort we just implemented is effective or is it not effective? How do you go about measuring it? Is there a go-to that's your favorite? So is there a best go-to or a best policy to measure the effect of personalization?
Sincerely, it still then boils down to what your company goals are or what you want to achieve from that personalization program, right? I would assume that for most companies, what they want to achieve is increase their revenue and as well keep their customers coming back. So if I launch a campaign or a program around personalization and then I'm not seeing an uptick in revenue, my customers are leaving me, then it means that I'm not doing it right. I'll give an example, and that was at Alezo. Very, very classic example of how we can also personalization and how that affected our revenue. At Alezo, B2B e-commerce company that helps retailers restock. One thing was clear. Working in Nigerian market with multi-languages, you have English, you have Pidgin, you have Igbo, you have Yoruba, right? You have Hausa. Those were 5 major languages that we would have. And from the product side, firstly, we kind of designed the app such that if you speak Hausa, then you can switch your app to Hausa language. So think about a very informal retailer who is in Ibadan or in Osogbo or maybe in Delta, right? Who maybe does not understand English, then they can select their preferred language, right? So that was one level of personalization. But then as well, from a point of our notifications, right, we ensured that the messages they got, so if I had selected on my app that I understand Igbo language very well, the next set of notifications you're going to get is going to be in Igbo language and not English because, you don't understand. You said you don't understand or you didn't prefer English. What we realized was that our notifications contributed to large percentage to the revenue that we got in terms of returning customers and repeated purchases, right? And that was really, really great. One thing we also, were able to do was to build what you call a likelihood to buy model, right? Build around ML. So it literally predicts when next you're most likely going to buy products from us. And so then we can think around different strategies to re-engage you if you didn't buy at that particular time, right? Or if then you're churning, right? So all you want to look at is what are the pointers that shows that one, your revenue has increased, That secondly, your customer base is also increasing and not churned. And as well, even thinking about around the concept of negative churn. So those are like major pointers you want to look at, right? To see whether your personalization strategy is really, really working.
Okay, I understand you, and I think that makes sense. Like, if the goal for the business doing personalization is to increase revenue or increase like the number of purchases, etc., then of course they're going to be tracking whether or not it actually does increase repeat purchases, etc. So, yeah, I agree with you on that one. Now, Nena, I have a question for you because I'm trying to move on to another step. I think it's clear for us at this point how important personalization is, how it can be implemented, and how you can track it. So I want to move on to understand, like, we're going into 2025 soon. Many businesses are rethinking their strategy, thinking about how to update their tools, their technology, their strategies, etc. Nena, is there any thoughts that you have regarding the tools or technology that can change personalization or improve personalization in the future? Like, I'd like to understand, like, are there any emerging ones that you can think of and you'd like to share with us?
All right. Thank you, Piss. So, like you mentioned, we're going into 2025. Many businesses would, be strategizing on how to make business move for them. What I would suggest at this point, even if I know that it's currently in use, is, AIs, right? AIs and machine learning, right? They are the center of personalization. While we know that human intervention, or there are a lot of things human beings can do, right? Personalization doesn't just come with, maybe the client opens your application, their name is there, everything they want is there. Another way to improve personalization is through how these clients experience your product. It doesn't have to be, going to the app and doing what it is you want to do there and coming out. It also has to do with how you support them while using this product. So I have seen AI being used in recent times, and from what I have gathered, right, AIs can be used to do a lot of things. As they can do stuff like, analyze vast amount of customer data, predict behaviors, and even go as far as offering personalized recommendation, right? So I know that one tool that is going to help in most businesses in 2025 is the use of AI, right? Because I personally foresee a future where these technologies can, go even further as to not just recommending personalized, resolutions, but, suggesting new features and products, right, based on the customer's behavior on your platform, right? So I know that AI is something most companies are going to look to adopt in coming years, right? So I'm going to bring it down to customer support now, right? So if you introduce a chatbot to customer support, and of course, like I said before, an average person would have attempted to self-serve, right? If they're experiencing any issues at all with your product. Now, they only come to customer support when they try to self-serve and it's not working for them. Now, applying AI to customer support is what we are talking about now. We have a lot of clients. Imagine a company that has clients, maybe over 1,000 clients. I don't want to do 10,000, right? Because 1,000 is already a crowd, right? And they are experiencing issues. Everything a customer wants, this is very, very crucial when it comes to personalization, is for them to come to you with their issues, their pain points, and you want you to resolve it as soon as possible. Now, what does AI, artificial intelligence, do for you at this point? You can adopt measures like chatbots, right? From the previous data that you would have put together on the complaints that you'd have received with regards to your product, you can create a workflow using AI, right? That is going to help, in line with the data you've gathered, create a workflow that is going to help them interact, that is going to help you interact with your clients faster, resolve their issues faster without even having to bring in humans, right, to intervene, right? So I see the use of AI tools, right, as one of every company's strategy in the coming years. And like I said, as this AI improves, it would start doing stuff that would help companies grow without even having to sync with their clients, right? It's more like, okay, they notice what is happening. The AI would have taken like an algorithm of what customers are doing, put them together and suggest to you, this is what I feel like you should build, right? So in this case, what happens is that clients no longer come to you to say, oh, I'm having issues with your product, this, that. It's already suggested, right? And at that point, what happens is you would be doing more of improvement, right? As opposed to looking for how to sync with clients to, get information about your product and so on, right? So I see AI being adopted in most business strategies in the coming years, starting from next year. That's it from me. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, please, I'm happy to just jump in as well here.
Yeah. Yes, please go ahead, Eddie Young.
Yeah, I mean, just feeding from what Nina mentioned around like AI and how it literally affects personalization. I think one part of personalization that we honestly are missing is around advertising, right? Think about how complex it is to personalize ads, right, to people who visit your website. And think about it at scale. If you had 1 million visitors, each of them with different needs and wants, right, different personas, it becomes very, very hard to then create millions of ad sets or thousands of ad sets serving these people. I mean, with AI, we're already seeing newer levels of personalization. Google right now offers a lot of AI-powered ad solutions, which automatically create ads, right, that targets people based on which pages they had visited, their previous purchase histories, and the rest. So this is a big trend that we expect as we keep going, in the few months and years ahead. I wrote about this as well on my Medium blog about a company called Red Balloon. I think the company is in Australia. Before now, their cost of acquisition had gone really high because they didn't know who they were really targeting. And as well, it was very tedious work, monotonous work for them to keep creating, lots of ad sets, trying to reach, people. But having to use AI, they were then able to create dynamic ad sets or ad sets and then creatives, right? Ad creatives that then would target these people. What happened was that from about $50 that we're spending to acquire a customer, they were then spending about 15, right? And kind of lowering their cost of acquiring new customers and even driving repeated purchase. So that's really great stuff we're going to see as AI personalization comes into play. The other part is around digital spaces. And so you think about like VR and AR, right? I think most companies now offer that level of personalization where I want to buy an eyeglass. I think Ray-Ban does that, and I can wear it and I can see how it fits into my face. And I'm like, oh, cool, I look good. I think I should buy it. Or then even wearing a shoe online without having to physically wear it. So that's some extra level of personalization. Amazon also does it. When I was trying to fix my apartment, I would see a chair, and then I would put on my camera and then fit it into my space. It measures my space and tell me this is how it will look. So we expect that level of personalization, not just from a point of, hey, hi Eddie, or hi Nena, or hi Peace. No, we want to see, deeper levels of personalization, which creates a lot better experiences that customers really want and they delight over.
Interesting. I certainly want to experience that too. Like, I think it would be cool to sort of see what the thing I'm about to purchase, what it would look like in my space or on me. Like if it's a night glass or an accessory or furniture, like you mentioned, I didn't even know that you could do that with any product. So that's interesting. You guys have shared so much about where personalization could be going and how we can improve personalization in the coming years. Thank you so much. I think I have personally learned so much new stuff that I didn't even know before. And as I'm wrapping up this webinar, I'd like Paul to just share a brief about what you think about the next 5 to 10 years of personalization. Like, what do you picture that looking like?
I would say the next 5-10 years of personalization, what we're seeing now is really a large percentage of users demanding personalized experience. And why is that? That's because prior to this time, most companies, most products have been using one-size-fits-all messaging, right? So I have a list of customers. I send all of them the same offer at the same time. And it's kind of like a spray and pray thing where I just hope that some of them are going to buy after, I send them these messages, right? But we've seen that isn't working. And so a large percentage of users, over 70-80% of users now, really require personalization. And I don't think that trend will change in the next 5 to 10 years. People require deeper levels of personalization. And, personalization cuts across communication, experiences, and, it's and all of these things, it's really easy to mimic a brand or get scammed and all of those things. So personalization definitely help increase and build that trust as sort of like AI powered agents and content take over. So that's something that we should definitely have in the back of our minds. And then obviously AI is definitely going to enhance that process. Talk about the message you're generating, figuring out the time to send the messages, what channels are best. AI could definitely make that process a whole lot better and a whole lot simpler. But one thing that I would talk about finally before I wrap up is a new trend coming up. And that trend is about zero-party data. So at the moment, there's a lot of first-party and third-party data that websites and apps generate, right? So I know most of us on this call, sometimes we've been discussing about products we want to buy or setting stuff online. All of a sudden, we're getting all these ads and all of these things relating to that product, right? And that's because there's a whole lot of third-party data being shared with all of these brands we interact with. However, right now, in the next 5 to 10 years, that is all being phased away. First of all, Google is taking away the cookies, and there's more of these trends coming up where there's a lot of data regulation, and so businesses third-party services are not able to collect data and then use that data. So we're moving into a world where data privacy and data sharing is very key and is more scrutinized. So what that means is that businesses are going to have limited data sets to make advertisement with. And so as a business, you have to start thinking around what your strategy would be. Zero-party data means the data your customer voluntarily gives to you, right? And which for most of us, that would be the basic details, the name, the email, the basic contact details. But as you know, as a business, we need more data to be able to personalize things for customers. And in the past, we've done that through third-party connections and first-party data and all of that. But in a world where you no longer have access to that, the question then becomes, how do you build context for your user base to be able to personalize the experience? And I think that's where strategy comes in. So as a business, you should create a strategy for how you're going to build context about your users, their preferences, their wants, their likes, their needs, and everything about them historically as well, transactions and all of that. Because all that data, businesses are only going to be able to use the data they've been able to internally generate to personalize experiences for their customers, right? And so as a business, you should start personally collecting data, because if you don't do that, advertising is just going to be hard. And so that's what I want to wrap up with is in the next 5 to 10 years, all of these trends would likely, be the norm. And so we should prepare for all of this to come. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We're going to take questions now. So I can see that Royal Apparel is raising his hand or her hand. If you'd like to ask questions, please also raise your hand and you all be allowed to ask your question. So, yes, can you just go ahead and ask your question now? If you're trying to speak, you're muted. I can see that you're muted from my end. Okay. Can we allow Daniel to ask his question while we wait for Royal Apparel to get set up?
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Keith. And kudos to all the speakers. It was quite insightful. So my question specifically would be, so what in a situation where personalization goes wrong? Because I understand that there are so many benefits of personalization. So let me give you an instance. So in the marketing space, right, one of the ways we are able to send personalized data, for example, or send personalized informations to people or to our target audience is via personalized emails and the rest. And I've had situations where some of the tools that are used for these automations or that are used to build these automations, let me just use the word glitch. How do you restitute such informations or restitute such situations? Say, for example, I was supposed to target a customer that prefers to buy jeans, and then subsequently or mistakenly, right, there was a default in my automation process. And instead of getting an email that is centered on getting jeans, they are getting something on phone pouch. Whereas I've seen a situation where an email was sent to me with somebody's name, dear so and so, and then I entered in and I'm seeing, and it was sent by a legit company, so it was not a phishing email. So it was an automation error. So how do you do a proactive steps that why personalization is a beautiful thing to do? How can we fill up for these situations or these problems whenever they arise? So I want an answer to that because I think he's more insight, has more insight based on a marketing background. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks so much for that question. To be very sincere, these mishaps can happen. The example I gave about Zepto, it might have been just maybe an issue with the automation tool, or maybe then cleansing of the data. If you were here at the first instance, I kind of spoke about the steps in trying to build out a really great personalization program. And one of them involved, using the right tool, ensuring that the people that are part of that dedicated team are trained and also upskilled as new trends appear. But in cases where really there is a mistake, I guess one thing is transparency. And it then also boils down to the company's ethos, right? If you notice it, you can always apologize. But then it should not be an occurrence that happens every other day. right? The other part is that customers, some of them would give the feedback that the information or the message you're sending to them is irrelevant. I think Nina also mentioned around, talking to customers. So if you get that feedback, then you want to retrace, right? Look back at your data. Am I matching the right name with the right email? Am I keeping track of purchase history, app usage patterns or behavior accurately? Because then that kind of influences whatever automation or algorithms you're building, right, to drive that, personalization. So yeah, you can be transparent enough to apologize if a customer says, hey, you sent me the wrong message, and then try to fix that. I think we have really good automation tools out there, like Bonds. You can try those out as well. But ideally, the major thing you want to do is to apologize transparently to the customer, and then do your work in-house to fix that data. Yeah, that is cute.
All right, thank you so much, Eddie John. So my final question would be, how do we manage customers' expectation as regards producing or creating personalized products? Let me explain. So for example, maybe you've rolled out a survey, and in a survey you realize that there are products the outcome of the survey is pointing towards two different products, like two different needs, two different primary needs. How would you ensure that customers' expectation as regards what new features that they would like to see incorporated into the experience that will make the experience better aligns closely with your business goals? Let me rephrase that, right? So for example. For example, imagine you did a survey, and in that survey, you notice that some persons are recommending a particular feature. Other persons are recommending something that is different from that feature that the others are trying to recommend. So how do you come and stand as a business, how do you reconcile that to ensure that both ends have maximum satisfaction? So that would be my last question. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Okay, great. Thanks so much for that question. I have seen a lot of products that are dynamic enough, right? And I'll start from there to meet particular customer needs. So let's say, for example, you run a survey and 10% of your customers say they prefer this product. Another 20% say they prefer the other product, and maybe the rest say we prefer this other product. It might be very hard because to kind of match who exactly, said, hey, I prefer this product over this other product, or this feature over this other feature. One thing I would do from a product standpoint would be then to implement a feature that requires that they select what kind of product or feature that they would want to use the most, right? And so that way, what they see on their dashboard is entirely different, right, from what I would also see as another user, right? So I'll use a very simple example. Maybe with payment, there is cards, there is transfer, there is bill payment, and then customers say, hey, I prefer just bill payment. I want bill payment to be like the major product, right, on their dashboard once they get in there, and then the other products that they don't really prefer be secondary based on their own selection. So then you can kind of force them to select what product they really want, and then dynamically show them, the product that they prefer. That could be a bit of a success for a start, right? Towards driving that personalization from a product standpoint. I don't know if that answers the question.
And maybe I can add something there as well.
Okay.
Essentially, when we get user feedback, especially in the hundreds, it's most times people always want different things, right? You have this set of people that want this, have this other set that want this thing. But at the end of the day, what the users are trying to point and give you as a business is a direction. So as a business, what you should try to understand is the denominator, right? So all of these things people have recommended, what exactly are they trying to accomplish with this feature? What exactly are they trying to solve? What's that problem exactly? Because sometimes you already have that, maybe just not in the way that the users are thinking. And then sometimes you don't, right? But as all of us here know, you can't build every single feature a user asks for. So the question then becomes, how do you sort of like on a base level understand what users are really where users are really gearing towards, and then building or solving for that. And sometimes we don't necessarily need to build anything. You may just need to show people or educate people on how to achieve what they want to achieve. So it still boils down to understanding, like actually looking at that data and like analyzing it properly and be like, oh, this is what people are trying to accomplish, right? Because most users, to be honest, they know the goal of what they're trying to do, but are not very clear on the steps, right? And most of the platforms, we have the way for them to achieve their goal, but the steps to achieve it are not very clear. And so once you're, as a business, you're able to figure out from all of this data you've gotten back, and this is where like AI is actually really good, because when you get a whole lot of feedback, it's hard to really do a sentiment analysis individually and figure out what people want. But if you're able to leverage a lot of these intelligent systems and figure out the problem you're trying to solve, regardless of what they say in the survey, when you understand the underlying problem, and if your product is actually solving a particular market, most likely people want the same things or adjacent things, and your product could solve for that. So once you really look deeper into this data you're getting, get the real insight, you're then able to direct your product strategy, and you're able to then release things that that solve the user's problem. Yeah, thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Daniel, and thank you, Paul and Eddie Young as well. I don't know if Royal Apparel is ready to ask his question or her question, but if not, maybe King David can just go ahead. Your name is funny, by the way, because you sound like King David.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Good day, everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity. This has been an amazing conversation thus far. So my question lies more on the business side of things. How do you, as a company, have personalization as a fixed cost? So how do you have it what would be your advice to companies, to businesses, to product owners to have personalization as a fixed cost for businesses? All right, so that's just my question. Yes, I've heard some things thus far, but I just want a deeper dive into that.
And based on what you're willing to pay. And if you're building it in-house, then you know that you have to cater for the people building it, and not just like the one-time upfront cost of building it, but the cost of ongoing maintenance and ongoing additions, right? And that's actually really risky, because when you think about downsizing, then you can downsize that team and you can no longer fix that. So when doing stuff like this, I would definitely advise companies to fall more on like using third-party platforms to solve all of this, because there's just so many intricacies and use cases that go into making these things work, that it would be very hard to estimate. And then finally, I'd like to also have people not think about customer engagement and personalization as just something that takes money out of the business, but actually something that also brings money. Because remember, the whole goal of personalization and constant customer engagement is to increase your user retention and to increase like repeat purchases and like more revenue for your business, right? So in honesty, if you're spending some amount of money in your personalization efforts, if your personalization efforts are actually working, then it should definitely pay for itself a couple times over, right? So as a business, you need to keep optimizing your retention and engagement strategy to a point where, you could boldly say that, if you do XYZ things, you're going to get XYZ results. And so that way you can always know that, your costs are always covered. I don't know if that answers the question.
Awesome. Thank you very much for it does. Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All right. Do we have any more questions? If not, I'm going to just do like a quick recap. So we talked about personalization, of course, in this webinar. We understand now that it is a great thing for businesses to incorporate in their strategy because it improves the customer experience and also increases the business ROI in terms of like it does increase the chances for customers to engage more, purchase more, use the product more, etc. And we also mentioned that personalization can be done by using existing customer data, can also be done by talking to customers directly to understand how they want their experience to be improved. We also walk through the implementation preferences and channels, like using push notifications or WhatsApp. And I think it was Eddie Young that said it really depends on where your customers are at, like what channels they're active on. And of course, when you're looking to implement personalization in your business, you need to be thinking about customer privacy. Please don't spam customers. Let personalization be an improvement to their experience. Let it be something that makes them excited to hear from you. Because if customers start feeling annoyed by your messages, if it feels like you're ruining the experience, then it's no longer personalization. You're just becoming an annoying spam. And so then there needs to always be that thought at the back of our minds that as much as we want to personalize the customer experience, we have to think about not ruining their experience as well. And of course, like the tools and tech for the future of personalization, as we're all thinking about it now, is like think of ways to use AI. We've already all mentioned bonds here, but there's so many other ways that you can go about introducing personalization in your business. Because if you're trying to do this by yourself, it's just impossible to do this at scale. So you need to be looking at ways you can use some of these tools to make it easy to reach customers where they're at. In this way, your personalization efforts are working 24/7, even when you're not able to actively do anything for customers. So yeah, this brings us to the end of the webinar. We know that personalization is not going anywhere. So even in the next 5-10 years, the ways, the tools, the technology, the approach might become more deeper, more advanced, etc. But it's certainly not going anywhere because that's where customers are looking for a lot more personalized experience. So I hope that we have all collected a lot of information from this and we have something to go and implement. Thank you so much for joining us today. I wish you all a wonderful evening, afternoon, or morning, wherever you are, in case you're not joining from Nigeria. Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good time.
Bye. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.